Let's be real for a second. When someone we love is grieving, we usually panic, right? We turn into these anxious bystanders, completely forgetting how to just act human, and we get totally desperate to find those perfect words to somehow fix their pain. But what if the secret to being an absolutely incredible supporter isn't about what you say at all? Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a profoundly rich discussion from Poetricity. We're going to figure out how to transform ourselves from nervous, awkward onlookers into genuinely effective, graceful supporters for the people we care about.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our roadmap for the masterclass we're about to take. We'll be exploring 1. The power of presence. 2. Doing the inner work. 3. Dropping judgments and opinions. 4. Avoiding the second arrow. 5. Compassion over the vortex. And finally, 6. Awakening the inner angel.
So, starting us off, Section 1, the power of presence.
To really grasp this, we've got to dismantle literally the biggest misconception out there. This idea that we need to fix the grieving person with some brilliant speech. The discussion actually anchors on this incredible poem called Potent Presence. And the quote goes like this: "Presence is more potent than presentation. Presence is energy transmitted beyond mere words." Think about the biblical story of Job for a second. After he suffered immense loss, his friends just came and sat with him in silence for 3 whole days. They literally moved mountains and broke down barriers without speaking a single syllable. Authentic support, it's energetic. It is so much more than just verbal.
And as you'll see here, this is a massive paradigm shift. On the left, we've got presentation. Using rehearsed words, feeling that crushing pressure to find the absolute perfect thing to say, and ultimately, just wearing a mask. But on the right, that's presence. That is bringing your authentic energy and becoming a pure listening vacuum. When you finally stop worrying about your performance, well, that's when you create the space for real, authentic, deep connection.
Which brings us to a really vital concept: unconditional positive regard. Basically, this means creating a totally safe, completely judgment-free space. The Poetricity discussion used this beautiful metaphor for it. They said it's like being naked in the garden without feeling ashamed. It's allowing someone to be utterly vulnerable, yet completely 100% safe. The crucial takeaway here is that true healing for a griever, it only begins when they feel this profound safety to exist exactly as they are right now.
Moving right along to Section 2, doing the inner work.
Now, before we can hold a safe space for anyone else, we really have to prepare internally. So I want you to look inward for a second and honestly ask yourself, are you uncomfortable with silence? Seriously. Because so often when there's a lull in a heavy conversation, we just rush to fill the gap with words. But actually, the hard truth is that this urge usually stems from our own unhealed discomfort, not the griever's actual needs. In a way, we're just speaking to soothe ourselves. So to be an effective supporter, you absolutely must clear your own emotional clutter first. Here's the process to get there. First, seek out your inner blocks. Really recognize your own anxieties around grief. Second, become at peace with silence. Literally practice just sitting in it without squirming. And third, let go of the need to fix the person. Doing this deep inner work is totally mandatory if you want to be a steady rock for someone else.
All right, Section 3, dropping judgments and opinions. Let's talk about the psychological pitfalls of judging how someone else navigates their deeply personal pain. There's a poem shared in the source called Judged Opinion, and wow, it really hits hard. It says, "It is my considered opinion this is the best way to be, as the self-appointed judge questions your right to be." I mean, this perfectly illustrates how easily and dangerously we confuse our own subjective opinions with prescriptive facts. Look, just because you grieved a certain way or recovered on a certain timeline, it doesn't mean they will, or for that matter, that they even should.
And this brilliantly illustrates the striking difference in action. Harmful actions are things like projecting your own recovery timeline or, forcing someone to positively reframe their loss way before they're ready. Supportive actions, on the other hand, acknowledge their highly unique journey and accept their current state. The source uses this fantastic example of stroke survivors. 2 people might have strokes, but their hidden disabilities and emotional recoveries are entirely different. Well, grief is the exact same way. It has a highly individualized fingerprint.
Which leads us to Section 4, avoiding the second arrow.
We absolutely need to talk about the accidental harm that even well-intentioned supporters can inflict.
The Poetricity discussion referenced a poem called Suffering, which outlines this concept known as the second arrow. So the first arrow is the tragic loss itself. The second arrow, that's the suffering we accidentally add as supporters. We shoot this arrow by pushing toxic positivity, projecting our personal timelines, failing to simply ask them what they actually need, and making them feel like an alien in their own skin just because they aren't healing the way we expect them to. We have got to be incredibly mindful to stop shooting that second arrow.
So how do we safely share our experiences then? Well, here is a highly practical takeaway. Offer advice with a receipt. If you want to share a lived experience or offer guidance, do it in a way that allows the griever to easily reject or, return it without feeling any guilt whatsoever. You just say something like, hey, this worked for me, but I know your journey is totally different, so please feel free to ignore this. Dropping our attachment to them accepting our help completely prevents that toxic imposition of expectations.
Next up, Section 5, Compassion over the Vortex. Let's navigate the very nuanced but completely vital difference between empathy and compassion. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the stark contrast between feeling bad, which is a form of empathy, and true compassion. On the left, if you merely empathize by taking on their pain, you actually amplify this destructive emotional vortex. You get lost in their storm, and suddenly you've lost your capacity to actually help. But on the right, compassion means you hold a safe space. You clearly acknowledge their pain, but you deliberately reserve your energy to act as a stabilizing anchor. I want to pose this direct question to you right now. How is your feeling so bad helping them feel better? It's a really profound thought, isn't it? If you're stuck in the mud, weeping right alongside them, completely overwhelmed by their experience, well, who is left to hold the space? You have got to stay grounded on your side of the fence to offer true, stable support. And finally, Section 6, Awakening the Inner Angel. We've built up to the empowering climax of our journey today. This brings us to a poem simply titled Angel. And the beautiful revelation here is this: I have been touched by an angel, so I could see that under my disguise was an angel staring back at me. You see, the ultimate goal of the supporter isn't to be some superhero who swoops in and magically saves the griever. No, your role is to hold the space so well that it empowers the griever to find the strength to save themselves. The source material uses this absolutely beautiful metaphor of a tree to explain this. As supporters, we are like the sunlight and the gentle rain above the ground. We provide the warm environment, the nourishment. But the tree's root system? It has to dig through the hard, dark ground to find water entirely on its own. That deeply personal rebirth of finding hope and a reason to live again happens underground, within the griever themselves. And all of this builds into this incredibly beautiful cycle of grace. Step 1, you do the inner work to hold a safe, unjudged space. Step 2, the griever, within that safety, rediscovers their own resilience. And step 3, having healed and found their own footing, they become an angel for the next person who is grieving. This pays the grace forward, creating a culture where grief is normalized and handled without adding any more suffering to the world. Which leaves us with one final provocative thought. Who will be the next angel you empower? The tools are all right here. By offering pure presence, dropping your judgments, and securely holding that safe space, you have the profound ability to literally transform a life. Thanks so much for diving into this explainer with me. I really hope you feel inspired and ready to bring these incredible tools into your own relationships.